Well, to further examine some of the detail of the budget as it affects business, we have the chairman of JB Hi-Fi, Patrick Elliott, here in our Sydney studio. And in Melbourne, we have James MacKenzie, who chairs the developer Mirvac and the clothing company Pacific Brands, as well as sitting on the board of Gloucester Coal. Well, James MacKenzie, if I could come to you first. This month's Institute of Company Directors survey had 80% of business who thought that the government didn't understand it. Do you think government's been listening to business in framing this budget?
Well, Ticky, I think on the whole this isn't a bad budget. I think putting to one side the socially progressive aspects of the budget, I was a little bit apprehensive that the government, with all the talk about it being a tough budget, was going to slam on the brakes. And I think we've always got to reflect on why we're in such a good economic position vis-a-vis the rest of the world, and obviously there's been lots of discussion about the resources we've got in the ground and the urbanisation of China and all those sort of things. But we also, the government did spend during the GFC, and that's where the deficit that people are now talking about came from. You must also be very pleased, putting your coal hat on for a moment, with their announcement on training. Well, of course, in the resources sector, we need people. We need people with the skills necessary to take advantage of the opportunities that in particular, the urbanisation of China provides. But just let me go back to that point about slamming on the brakes. What we were concerned about is that the government would slam on the brakes too hard. And you've got to remember that government is still 20% of the Australian economy. And I think this easing of the brakes on is something that we were certainly pleased to see. Well, so certainly not a tough budget, as everybody is saying. But let me move away from the resources side. Patrick Elliott, well, actually, you both, of course, cover retail. But the employment creation that the government is hoping for, do you think this might finally boost retail spending, or is the psyche so much now into saving that it won't happen?
Well, we've certainly seen a very cautious consumer now for probably the last 18 months, nearly on 2 years. Yes. And I think anything that will promote employment, hours worked, greater participation rate, will increase household expenditure, and I think will certainly help retail. I certainly agree with James's point, and that is that I think we're fearing there could have been a lot worse in this budget than what we've seen, and I think that is a boost to retail in the shorter term.
James MacKenzie, do you agree about consumer confidence? This might actually boost it a bit?
Oh, I think you've got to look at that in terms of the patchwork economy. And, you know, people talk about a two-speed economy, and Patrick would probably be in a better position than me to know exactly how many speeds there are. But from the way I look at it, there's at least four. You've got the mining sector, you've got the mining services sector that's going gangbusters, you've got the public sector, and you've got the rest. And they react in different ways to the economic circumstances that they face. There's been
very deliberate and specific action taken, though, when it comes to resources, and very little on manufacturing, it seems.
Well, I think we don't want to interfere too much with market forces here, Ticky. And we know ultimately we're in, as people have said consistently during the discussion that I've heard this evening, we're in a very, very fortunate position. Ultimately we're, I suppose, cleaning up after the way in which we reacted to the global financial crisis. We're in a very good position. I've just come back from the States. I think the Americans would love to be in the position we're in. The developed European economies would love to be in the position we're in. Let me turn to Patrick Elliott again, and another specific initiative from the government today, or actually earlier in the week, these set-top boxes. As a JB Hi-Fi chairman, please explain to me what will happen with these set-top boxes. What sort of promotion will you be doing? And do you think that $350 or $400 per person is the right sort of figure?
Well, we haven't seen the detail of exactly what that will be. I think it's safe to say that the cost of a set-top box is probably closer to $50 than it is to $350, though there's a lot of other money going out into the system somewhere. Do you think this has the potential to be pink bats for pensioners, as it's been described? Look, I hope not. But unfortunately, the government has some form in that area, so you'd like to think this time around, having learnt from the past, they're going to be very targeted in the way they do it. I think the best way to do it, of course, is to provide a gift voucher for our stores and let them choose.
Putting your banker hat on for a moment, there doesn't seem to be anything in terms of financing R&D. Do you think that's now a discretionary spend?
Well, look, I certainly hope not. I think the biggest challenge that we have as a country with the dollar where it is and likely to stay here for a while is where are we going to find continued growth outside the resources sector. And unless we are investing in R&D and finding a way of being internationally competitive, I think we're going to become way too reliant on the commodity base that we have today.
Patrick Elliott and James MacKenzie there in Melbourne, thank you both very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jiggy.